Welcome to the Lifelinks Podcast, a Latina podcast for the modern cultura. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, Peruana, California native, structural engineer, mother, and your amiga for all things Latina. Here we honor the women who navigate multiple cultures, both aquí and allá, and somewhere in between, providing that safe place for you to speak your truth, celebrate la cultura, and find belonging in this comunidad. Join us every Wednesday on your favorite streaming platform to listen to your new amigas as they share their journeys of lessons learned, barriers they overcome, and the joys of living life with pure authenticity. Encuentras your voice and discover the life meant for you. Hola, chicas! Welcome to the Lifelinks Podcast, a Latina podcast for the modern cultura, coming to you every Wednesday. Y soy Consuelo here to liven up your soul, bring you amazing Latinas speaking their authentic truth to create this comunidad of belonging and love. It is October, Rocktober in my world, the month of everything to me and also to our cultura. It's my birth month. Scorpio chicks wrapping it up, but I celebrate all month, as should you. One day is not enough to celebrate the brilliance you all bring here. So make sure you check in on your birth month, day one, and start celebrating who you are and how you want to thrive here. Also, it is El Mes Morado in Peru, celebrating El Señor de Milagros, humble protection of the people. As we hit the halfway mark of celebrating Latina and Hispanic heritage here in the U.S., we are sassy, we are strong, hilariously fun, brilliant people who unite in our commonality and celebrate our unique diversity within the culture. Now, today is a Pod Club episode when we cull the gems from the previous week and highlight them in gratitude of everything they taught us. And wow, last week was a perfect introduction into October with a hint of spookiness, definitely goosebumps, and loving gratitude for our ancestors. If you haven't had a chance to listen to last week's episode, no worries. This one stands alone and gives great insights to what we learned from Melissa Sandoval, Emmy Award-winning journalist and TV personality, whose love for her beloved Medellin, Colombia, fuels her soul and with that, her intuition. It was her intuition that led her back to Medellin to uncover the shocking truth behind the plight of the Colombian coffee growers. But it was Melissa's compassion that fueled her intent to disrupt the corporate oppression of taking this world-renowned coffee out of the country, leaving nothing but dregs for the people who have cultivated this esteemed production for generations. Melissa started her own e-commerce company, Intuición Café, to buy directly from the growers, sell the specialty coffee here nationwide, and give back a percentage of the proceeds to the growers to support their intent to be proudly independent and self-sufficient in keeping the world's best coffee in their own country. Intuición. Intuition. Therein lies the secret with Melissa Sandoval, whose spirituality runs so deep that the veil is very thin between the here and the there. In her own words, it's the whisper of the soul. And last week's whisper made listeners stop in their tracks. Did you catch the moment? It was the goosebump causing moment. Maybe you caught it on our reel of her episode. In either case, it is definitely today's gem we are highlighting and going further with it to another jaw-dropping story from Colombia. Melissa was 3 years old when her father was killed in the turmoil of the 90s in Colombia. Little did she know then let alone in her 30 years after, that her father would reach out to her at the moment she needed him most. Not in signs and interpretations, but in his own handwritten note that she received out of the blue from her sister. Losing a parent at such a young age leaves little memories for a child. My mother lost her own father at 2 years old, and all we have are the stories of his endeavors and a black and white portrait of him in suit and tie, his black, piercing eyes trying to tell his story from afar. For Melissa, she hadn't remembered her father's endeavors as a cherry and berry farmer. The land was in her blood. Yet coming here to the U.S. had disrupted that intuition, had her wanting to succeed on America's terms, to validate her mother's courageous journey here, seeking asylum from the violence at home. Melissa soared in her profession, her childhood dream come true. Yet the pandemic disrupted the ascent, uncovering the dirty truths of American business and empowering her soul to come forward. And with that, her intuition, that guided her to a higher path full of unknowns and doubt, and none of the accolades that had fed her ego and not her soul. Instead, only intent. The intent to make change, to live for something meaningful, and the intent to follow her soul. The intuition that knows exactly who you were born to be. For all the entrepreneurs out there, you know that moment. That moment when you begin to doubt your vision, your dream, and are tempted to go back to the norm, the known, your safe place. But just then, in the depth of that unknown and crushing doubt, Melissa receives a note from her father's journal. A note he wrote to himself, not realizing his treasured daughter would be a renowned American journalist when she too would read it for reassurance. The only people who don't make mistakes are those who don't risk being entrepreneurs. In her own words, as she reads her father's note,
Solo hay un grupo de personas que no cometen errores, los que nunca emprenden.
Colombian intuición, to act on the intent of the soul, even if you may never see the powerful result of your action. Taking the Colombian intuición and intent even deeper, deep into the Amazon jungle and the indigenous people who thrive on ancient knowledge that we in the modern era have lost. Use it or lose it. This story centers on the 4 indigenous children who survived over 40 days in the Colombian Amazon jungle this summer after the small plane carrying them and their mother crashed, killing all adults on board. The mother was taking the children to see their father in a far-off part of the country. The eldest, Leslie Jacobombar Makutwai, was 13, while the youngest was only 11 months and would celebrate his first birthday in the jungle that he called home. Beyond the miraculous survival of the crash is the more pertinent realization, appreciation even, that these 4 children knew how to live alone in the wilderness until rescue teams could locate them. Rescue teams that relied on the knowledge and prowess of the indigenous trackers to follow their intuition with intent. We know they are alive, they said. We can feel them. Intention. The indigenous knowledge to live in peace with the land. The symbiotic relationship to nurture the mother. and for the mama to give life to the child. We are always the child in this world, and it is only our egos that makes us feel that we are in charge and can wield power over Mother Earth. But for Leslie, the 13-year-old, she cradled her upbringing as her life source, and ultimately, it was. She knew to search for the seeds of the Amazon palm, locally called 1,000 pesos, amazingly on point. Given that no fortune, no money, no 1,000 pesos could ever have helped them survive more than these seeds. Yet the only ones she did find weren't ripe. So she knew to hold them in her cheeks along her jaw in hopes that they would ripen so that she could feed the pulp to the younger children. 40 days. 40 days of intent to live without help and solely on her intuition and knowledge. Pulling the cassava flour from the demolished plain to make paste for the baby, and searching for wild fruits in the jungle. And although the army had dropped hundreds of survival kits to bolster the children's chances for survival, they only found one. Indigenous pride prevails in harboring the knowledge that has been lost to the modern era. The adults didn't fear for the children because they knew in their souls that they had provided them the gift of living, far beyond the gift of life. The spiritual depth to act on one's intuición, to feel the ancient knowledge to care for others and nurture them beyond fear, is something we must cherish. Intuición and intent. Technology is just the translation of what the brains in our past have already discovered. It is nothing new and will not keep you alive in the deepest, most uninhabitable part of the Amazon jungle. But intuición and intent most definitely will. Join us next week as we continue to celebrate the empowering Latinos who fuel our daily lives with art, beauty, and substance that do feed our souls. Join us in welcoming Yasmin Ramirez, author of Ándale Prieta by Lee and Low Books, a memoir that lyrically brings to life her relationships with her abuelita, lovingly called Ita, who raised Yasmin while her mother strived to provide for her. Yasmin reveals the honest entanglement within La Cultura and how it's viewed in society, all the while battling to discover her true identity. Listening to this audiobook just made me feel as though I was on her sofa, just enraptured by her honesty and truth and realizing that I had so much more to unpack. Ándale Prieta highlights Yasmin's powerful self-reflection and the talent to draw us readers in, trust her truth, and embrace the solace that Yasmin offers in seeing her flourish in her authenticity in this current day. We will be taking that deep dive with Yasmin next week to get to know more about her personally and to unwrap the memoir, Ándale Prieta. And as a final, a special shout out today, beyond our typical cafecito place, to Creative Ideas Cafe here in San Francisco, una mezcla de gastronómica auténtica of Colombian and Mexican eats. Right? Talk about a party. Colombian and Mexican, I'm there. And talk about intuición and intent. They're having a pop-up brunch this Sunday, so I can go get my Colombian fill before I head off on my As Seen from Space celebration in Colombia. Check them out on Instagram at Creative Ideas Cafe, and you will start planning your own visit to indulge in their arepas, tamales, and banana leaves. Oh, como Peru, and empanadas. There has to be some amazing cafecito to go with it all, so give them some love. follow, some kind words to fill their day with that Latina intent to support la comunidad. Encuentras your voice. And step into your truth, ladies. Ciao. Really appreciate the time you take to rate and review the podcast. Get the backstory and what you've heard here today and reach out on our website at lifelinks.com. That's LNXX, because it's about time, it's about us. Stay in the groove on our social media at Lifelinks and get ready to make your move, ladies. Viva!